No headset. No ID badge clipped to his collar. Just an old man in a light windbreaker, sleeves pushed to the elbows, a legal pad in his lap, and a black pen in his hand. He didn't look up when they called roll. Didn't speak when instructors gave briefing times. He just stared out the window, past the runway, past the horizon, as if he already knew how the day would end. The younger guys joked about him. Called him Radar Grandpa. Said he must have wandered in from base housing. One even offered him an extra headset as a joke. He didn't take it. Didn't even blink. The only one who really noticed was Lieutenant Reeves, youngest in his group, recent cross-rate from recon to drone operations. He was sharp, fast, and thought he had nothing left to learn. Until he glanced across the tower during pre-flight and caught the old man watching the monitor wall, not directly, but through the reflection in the window, tracking the drone telemetry without a word. For a second, Reeves thought it was coincidence, until he saw the man's pen stop moving, just as the fuel numbers dipped 0.3% below baseline. Before the alert even flashed, Reeves looked away, then looked back. The old man was already writing again. Not hurried, not guessing, just noting. Reeves didn't say anything, but something in his chest pulled tighter. The kind of pull you feel when someone in the room knows exactly how the ending goes, and doesn't need to prove it. The next morning, the old man was there again. Same spot, same chair, same quiet pen and pad, resting on one knee. No one had assigned him a seat. No one had asked him to be there. But somehow, no one told him to leave either. He just fit, like a shadow no one remembered casting. Reeves sat 2 rows over, watching the man through sideways glances. The screen in front of him displayed a simulated flight path over open desert. Crosswinds climbing, battery drain accelerating. Standard training exercise, but complex enough to trip most rookies. By 08:15, 2 cadets had already overcompensated their approach and burned through power reserves too fast. One instructor muttered, "They're fighting the sky instead of reading it." Reeves glanced up. The old man was still watching, still writing. The pen moved at specific intervals, never too fast, never drifting, not just scribbling, tracking. Reeves hesitated, then stood. He crossed the tower floor slow, pretended to check the coffee machine, adjusted a volume dial, then casually stepped beside the old man's chair. No introduction, just a quiet, "You Navy?" The old man didn't look up, but he answered, "Used to be." The voice was even, calm, not rusty, not warm, just exact. Reeves nodded, unsure what he was doing. "You were a pilot?" The old man shook his head once. "Watched radar. Before GPS. Before automation. When the only thing between a flight and blackout was a human pulse." Reeves wasn't sure how to respond. He motioned toward the man's notes. "You logging flight errors?" The man's pen stopped. He looked up for the first time. "No. Logging choices." Reeves blinked. "Choices?" The old man tapped his pad once. "Everyone makes the same ones when they panic. Left drift. Overcorrect. Look at the ground instead of the sky. Same mistake. Different badge." He looked back out the window. Reeves stood there for a moment longer, unsure whether to ask more. He didn't. Instead, he turned to walk back to his station. But as he did, he heard the old man say, just loud enough, "You'll see it too. Soon." Reeves paused, then kept walking. Back at his console, the screen lit up with a new flight sim. Terrain low visibility. Signal strength dropping. Reeves adjusted the controls, but his hands weren't as steady as before. By the 3rd day, the old man had a nickname. They called him Echo. Said he showed up, said nothing, and somehow made everyone nervous. A few thought he was just an old contractor who'd lost his clearance, but kept showing up like no one told him he was done. The instructors didn't correct it. They didn't say much at all. Reeves noticed that too. Noticed how the most senior air control officer would occasionally glance his way when the old man entered, then quietly shift a training module without comment. That morning, the tower was louder than usual. One of the newer recruits, a fast-talking drone tech named Breyer, was cracking jokes while syncing the sat feed sim. He pointed toward the back of the room with a plastic stylus. "Hey, you think the relic's gonna chime in today? Maybe scribble another prophecy in that notebook?" A few guys laughed. Someone else added, "He's probably writing his grocery list." Breyer smirked. "Or drawing stick figures of drones that don't crash. I mean, come on. No headset, no clearance, no pulse. What's he doing here? Reeves stood. He didn't plan to. The words just left his mouth before he knew they were forming. Don't. Breyer turned. What? Reeves kept his voice low. Don't talk about him like that. Breyer raised an eyebrow, half amused. Since when are you Echo's defense attorney? Reeves took a step forward, steady. You ever see someone catch a telemetry fault with a reflection off a window? Breyer didn't answer. Because I did, Reeves continued. And I didn't believe it either. But I checked his notes. And he logged a battery spike before the system did. Breyer gave a short laugh. Come on, man. He's just an old guy with a notepad. Reeves nodded once, slow. Exactly. And he still sees more than we do. Breyer scoffed, turned back to his console. No one laughed after that. Reeves glanced toward the back of the room. The chair was empty. No sign of the old man. Just the outline of his legal pad, resting face down on the chair cushion. Reeves walked over, slowly, and picked it up. One page stood out, written clean across the center in neat, black letters. Flight path ends before the map does. They won't see it coming. Nothing else. No name. No date. Just those words. Reeves folded the page once, slid it into his chest pocket, and sat down again. The tower seemed quieter now. Even with the buzz of signals and screens, something was missing. Or maybe, something had shifted. That night, Reeves stayed behind. The tower had emptied. The radar consoles dimmed. Even the buzz of idle comms had faded into a low hum, like the whole base was finally exhaling. But Reeves wasn't ready to leave. He sat alone under the cold blue light of Monitor 3, turning the folded note over in his hands. Flight path ends before the map does. The words rang louder the longer he stared at them. He didn't know what they meant. Not yet. But something in his gut told him they weren't theory. They were memory. He stood. Walked down the hall to the secondary control archive, the one with physical binders and printouts the digital systems didn't bother tracking. He entered his access code. The lights buzzed to life. Rows of case files and mission summaries stood in silence. Reeves scanned the spine labels, aviation ops, remote systems, incident logs. He pulled a binder labeled Unmanned Flight, Western Command, 1999 to 2003. Flipping through pages, something stopped him. A black and white photo. Grainy. 8 men in jumpsuits. Standing in front of a crude early model drone the size of a pickup truck. One man stood slightly off-center, not smiling. Just watching the camera. Calm. Detached. Same eyes. Same stillness. It was him. Reeves flipped the page. Tactical Flight Recovery, Western Range, June 2001. The incident summary was brief. An unmanned recon drone had gone off-grid over desert terrain. Telemetry had failed. Contact lost. A full flight team stood down. Except one man, a radar technician who stayed on after hours. Tracked the signal manually. Predicted wind drift. Estimated fallback angles by hand. Recovered the unit alone, 41 miles off course. No citation. No interview. Just one line under remarks. Action taken off record. Operator declined recognition. The name below it. Rourke D. No rank. No branch. Just the name. Reeves sat back. So he had been one of them. But not the kind who made speeches. The kind who read silence like others read maps. The kind who disappeared before the applause ever started. Reeves looked down at the folded note in his hand again. And finally, it made sense. The next morning, the chair by the window was empty. Again. Reeves arrived early. Earlier than the others. He scanned the tower once, checked every seat. Nothing. No windbreaker. No pen. No legal pad. He almost left, until he noticed something strange. His console was already on. And the screen, the one that usually booted cold, was lit with a local sim map, frozen at frame 86. He leaned in. There, just below the map overlay, sat a small object tucked against the keyboard frame. A compass. Old. Worn down to metal. No paint left. No plastic case. Just raw brass and a cracked glass face. The needle trembled slightly in the tower's vibration, but never drifted. Still true. Still centered. Reeves picked it up slowly. On the underside, someone had etched a few words into the back plate. Not engraved, carved. When signal fails, read the sky. No initials. No rank. But he knew whose hands had held it. He looked around the tower. It was still quiet. Still routine. But something in him had shifted. He slid the compass into his flight vest, left of center, close to the heart. No one else noticed, no one else asked. But that day, Reeves didn't fumble the wind correction, didn't overcompensate for drift, didn't let the sim screen pull him away from the sky. He read the air like it was alive. And when the instructor tapped his shoulder after the run, all he said was, "You felt that, didn't you?" Reeves nodded. "I didn't guess. I knew." The instructor didn't press further, just gave a short nod and moved on. Back at the console, Reeves glanced once more toward the window seat. Still empty. But somehow, not. Rourke didn't come back. Not the next day. Not the next week. The instructors never mentioned him. No announcement. No briefing. Nothing filed in logs. Just gone. But the tower wasn't the same. Something lingered. Not in the air. In the way people moved. Fewer jokes. Less noise. Reeves noticed it most during drills. Operators checked wind patterns before launch now. They scanned terrain shadows twice before calling clearance. Not because anyone told them to, but because they felt like someone was still watching. One morning, just after sunrise, Reeves was the first to arrive again. He unlocked the tower, sat at console 4, and noticed something small wedged into the seam between the glass and the frame. A folded page, yellowed from sun. He unfolded it carefully. Same writing as before. 3 words this time. Still watching. Always. No name. No date. Just that. Reeves stared at the words for a long time, then walked over to the seat by the window. He didn't sit, just stood, one hand on the backrest, eyes scanning the horizon, the way Rourke used to. Below, the runway shimmered in morning heat. A new batch of drone trainees walked toward briefing. Young, loud, bright-eyed. Reeves didn't say a word. He just turned, returned to his station, and slipped the folded paper into the back of his notebook. Later that week, someone left a headset on the window seat. No one claimed it. No one moved it. It just stayed there, idle, as if waiting for someone who'd never wear it again. Reeves changed. Not all at once, but over time, in the way silence settled into his habits. He no longer spoke during warm-up briefings unless asked. He sat at his console 5 minutes before call time. No notes. No distractions. Just watching the screen. Watching the sky. The instructors noticed. They stopped correcting him. Stopped checking his telemetry logs. Because they never found errors. The new recruits didn't understand it at first. To them, Reeves was quiet, distant. Maybe too serious. But when one of them fumbled a sim and overcorrected into terrain loss, Reeves didn't raise his voice. He didn't even move. He just said, "Watch the edge before you fix the middle." The recruit blinked. "What does that mean?" Reeves didn't explain. Didn't need to. The kid figured it out 3 runs later. That's when the shift truly began. Recruits started glancing toward him during launch checks. They hovered near his console before drills, not asking directly, but waiting for some kind of sign. Sometimes, Reeves gave it. A nod. A tilt of the compass he now kept beside his screen. Other times, he said nothing. Just let them struggle, and learn. One afternoon, a fresh cadet named Ortiz leaned over his shoulder. "Sir, I heard you trained with someone before. Older guy. No name on file." Reeves kept his eyes on the screen. Said nothing. Ortiz cleared his throat. "They called him Echo, right?" Reeves tapped the console once. "Echo's not a name," he said. Ortiz frowned and said, "Then what is it?" Reeves finally looked at him and said, "It's what's left after the signal fades." Ortiz nodded slowly. Didn't ask more. And for the rest of that week, he didn't miss a single approach angle. Reeves returned to the window seat that night. Sat in silence. The headset still rested on the console beside the chair. He didn't wear it. Just placed the compass next to it, and looked out toward the edge of the sky. Nothing moved. But he didn't feel alone. Not anymore. Some weeks later, the tower hosted a visit. A senior officer from Central Command, polished, clipped tone, 3 stripes. He walked the rows of trainees with practiced efficiency, asking sharp questions, correcting posture, making small talk. When he reached Reeves, he paused. "You're the one they call Steady Hands," he said. Reeves said nothing. Just looked up from the monitor. The officer gestured toward the compass on the console. "Old school," he said. Reeves nodded. "Sometimes the old ways still work." The officer smiled politely, then moved on. Reeves went back to scanning wind variants across the ridgelines. Outside, the last sim drone for the day passed into cloud cover. The tower lights dimmed slightly. As the cadets filed out, Ortiz lingered. He stood by the window chair, the one no one else sat in now. He looked at Reeves, then at the headset beside the chair. Sir? He asked quietly. Do you think he's still out there? Reeves didn't answer right away. He picked up the compass, held it in his palm. The needle settled. He didn't look at Ortiz when he replied. Some people don't leave, they just change shape. Ortiz nodded, eyes a little more serious than before. Then he left. The tower emptied. The air grew still. Reeves stood by the window, the same way Rourke once had, the same way all watchers eventually do. He didn't need words, didn't need applause. He just listened. The wind changed pitch outside. No warning lights, no sirens, just the shift in pressure you only hear if you've been listening long enough. Reeves didn't move, didn't speak, just watched the edge of the sky where maps end. And when the light caught the glass just right, it almost looked like there was someone else reflected beside him. But it was just the air, just the silence, just what stayed behind.